Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Big Life. First of all, Jordan and I just want to plug in and say we are so sorry for not having an episode last week. Life's a little crazy. The 6 hour time zone difference makes things sometimes a little bit hard. And just with so much going on with college graduations, with everything, with professional soccer and finals, life did get the better of us. So we did deeply apologize for that, and it will not happen again. But Jay and I are back this week. We're on summer vacation. It's officially Swedish summer. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been summer here, so I'm glad you're finally getting a little piece of it. I'm sick of your snow videos in there. I was getting cold through the phone. I'm sick of seeing it, even through social media. So it's good. College is wrapped up. We're fully into summer. I'm getting back with my knee here into full running and hoping to get on the ball here soon. So that's going well. And I went home for Mother's Day, got to see the family a little bit, back up at Michigan State now, so taking care of some business here, but it's been good. How are things over in Sweden other than the warm summer?
Yeah, it's finally Swedish summer, which I have been told is a dream, but it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's been 72 and sunny with no humidity the last 5 days. It's been absolutely marvelous. So happy there. Season's going good. We're officially 6 games into season. It's been kind of a crazy week. We had 3 games in a 8 day turnaround. And so it's one of those bang, bang, bang. I kind of feel like we're playing in college again. My body wasn't really ready for that, but we're doing good. We're sitting fifth in the table out of 14, and we've had some really good results recently, which super proud of the team and just starting to connect, get used to playing over here, the different playing styles. And, I finally think I've just had a moment, peace, and just knowledge that this is where I'm supposed to be. There's obviously so many playing in the US versus playing in Europe. There's all this debate, all this stuff. And, I had a moment we were playing a team, Hammerby, who won the league last year. And I realized I did my typical digging before the game. I was like, I'm defending someone who has spent years at Chelsea right now. And then the girl who subbed her out was spent years at Man City. And, I do have to shout out my father real quick. I texted my dad. I go, hey, Dad, I'm marking someone who played at Man City. He writes back. He's like, Man City, Spam City. They should check out Iowa City. So my dad was my little hype man. And, that game went really, really well for us. And so for me just to be able to be like, I'm doing this. This is my moment in my life right now. I'm honestly feeling super, super gracious. Also, side note, I am going to see Taylor Swift in Stockholm this weekend. So that might be why I'm feeling super gracious. You never know.
Oh my God, we'll have to get the report on that. That sounds amazing. Or is Trey going as well?
Trey and I are going. We have floor tickets because that's the cheap option in Europe. It's very weird. So general admission floor is the cheap options. We're like, all right, bet. So I will report my saga of the Eras Tour Stockholm edition next week. Very excited.
Oh my God, do you have an outfit?
No, because it was a very last minute decision to go. So we're still building it. We're like, okay, how do we build friendship bracelets? What are we doing? I think Trey's just gonna wear a t-shirt. I told Trey this. This is so Trey. I go, hey, we're gonna get you a t-shirt. I'm just gonna write Karma on it because Karma is my boyfriend. He goes, Sam, I'm not your boyfriend anymore. I'm your husband. So there's that.
Oh, Trey. How's he settling in?
Enough about our lives. Jordan was able to find an amazing guest. Unfortunately, I was not there for this interview because it took place way past my bedtime, Swedish time. So, Jordan, I'm so thankful you were able to find someone that fantastic to fill my shoes. And I'm so happy to finally hear this interview of you and your guest.
Yes, I got very, very lucky. Miss Brooke Allen, who is a senior in high school right now, we went to Brunswick together. I got to play with her for 1 year. I was a senior, she was a freshman. She is now committed to the University of Wisconsin. And we got to talk a lot about just the commitment process and recruiting process, how it's changed. Me and Sam have gotten a bunch of questions, and we said, we're a little out to date at this point in our careers. Sam's freaking 80 years old over here, Grandma, and I'm going into my senior season. So it's changed so much. So being able to have fresh eyes and a fresh perspective on that process was super informative. She's so well spoken for a senior in high school. I was so impressed. I mean, it was like, there's no way I could have done this when I was a senior. So that, and then she also is recovering from an ACL injury. So being able to touch on all that and really learn about that process, I think it was one of my favorite interviews, and I'm a little bit biased because I love Brooke and I cannot wait to see her in the Big Ten this year.
So are you just saying that you're replacing me? Like, listen, Brooke, you can be good, but you can't be this good.
Yeah, absolutely. That is exactly what I'm saying, and I'm glad you picked up on that.
Okay, good, good. Well, without further ado, my replacement, apparently, Brooke Allen.
Thank you for joining us, Brooke. We have a lot of questions about how the recruiting process has gone and all of that stuff. So we thought a great guest to bring on would be someone who is just joining the college scene here in the fall, Miss Brooke Allen, who I got the privilege of playing a year with in high school and will now see on the field again in the Big Ten season. So thank you for coming on, Brooke.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So the biggest question, like I said, we get is just about the journey. So can you just talk us through a little bit about who you are and how you kind of got to this place in your terms of your younger career days in club soccer?
Yeah. So growing up, I played for CFC and we were always just kind of in like normal league, like nothing that was going to like get us recruited, like just growing up. And then my freshman year of high school, basically how the ECNL works, or at least how it used to work, is that you have to play a year in the regional league before you can go right into the national league. So my freshman year of high school, I played ECRL and we were just blowing out teams like 8-0, 9-0. We like won our conference and we're one of the teams that went into the playoffs. So then my sophomore year, we started playing in the National League, which is ECNL. And that was just a completely like different experience. I'll never forget, like every year they have showcases. So our first one that we went to was December of my sophomore year, and that was ECNL Tennessee. And all of a sudden there were just like college coaches up and down the sidelines. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen this before. And like, I know they were like, oh, there might be some colleges there, but it was truly like a whole different experience. And, then we went to one of those like selection games and you see like the best players in the country play together. And there's hundreds of the best colleges and any college you can name just up and down the sideline. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it was truly like surreal. And my team was just, we honestly like weren't really, I don't think we scored a single goal that entire weekend. I think we maybe had one. I think we tied all of our games. So we just were kind of like still getting into it. But then our next showcase was in January and we went to Florida. And that was the first time that Wisconsin saw me play. So that was almost 2.5 years ago now. And they weren't on my radar at all. I had been emailing like tons of coaches, and I kind of always wanted to play in the Big Ten, but I was still new to the recruiting process, so I hadn't done that much research. But after, I remember we were at soccer training, and my club coach, Coach Felton, came up to me afterwards, and he was like, "So here are the coaches that reached out to you." And I remember he said, "University of Wisconsin." I was like, And so I went home and told my mom, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, University of Wisconsin, like that's in the Big Ten." I was like, "What?" Like I was so excited. And so I did my research on them. I was like, this seems like a really good fit. And so at the time, like we couldn't talk to coaches until I think it's June 15th of that year. So I kind of just like sat back and had like my coaches communicate with them. But what you can do is like they invited me to an ID camp. And so I went up with my dad to Wisconsin and did an ID camp. And honestly, I don't think that I played very well there. I was like so stressed out. And that was like my first one ever. Or no, it was like my second one. But I was like, oh, I don't know if they're still interested in me. And again, they couldn't like text me and be like, hey, we liked how you played, because you can't do that at that stage. So they saw me play at ECNL New Jersey and then like the ECNL national playoffs in Seattle until then finally like June 15th. And I'll never forget that day. Like the whole day, it was like 12 a.m. I remember like there were multiple coaches that reached out at like 12:05 5 a.m. or whatever. And I was like, okay, like good colleges. But all I wanted was that like email from Wisconsin. And I was like, my mom was like, you just need to get your mind off of this, like go do something else. So I went to the pool with my friend, and finally like I'm sitting there like just relaxing, and I get a text, and it was like, "Hi, this is Paula, the head coach at Wisconsin." And she was like, "We've really enjoyed seeing you play, and I'd love to be a part of your recruiting process." And I was like, I literally think I started crying. I was like so excited. From that point on, like, I mean, I was just talking with her like as much as I could, getting to know like the assistant coaches and stuff. And then like my junior year of high school started and I was having like a really successful junior year. And so then they invited me up on a visit, like once that was possible and stuff. And then like a week after my official visit, they made me my offer. And then like a week later, I committed. So yeah.
Oh, wow. So it seems like you had your eyes set pretty quickly there once you heard about Wisconsin.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was always like, don't put all your eggs in a basket, but that is exactly what I did. And I mean, luckily it worked out. But yeah, I mean, I had a couple other schools in mind, but like I kind of knew like once they reached out that like that was kind of where I wanted to go. So
Yeah, that's amazing. If it wasn't going to be Wisconsin, what were your backup schools?
so the biggest other school that I was looking at was Xavier. And I think like I mean, they both have really good programs, but they're very different like schools. Wisconsin's obviously much bigger, completely different conference. So I mean, it was a pretty big decision, but not a super difficult one at the end of the day. So
Yeah. How much did you know about Wisconsin before they reached out? Like, did you know they were in the Big Ten, or did your mom kind of bring that to light?
no, honestly, I didn't. I'd always seen like that like W logo, like, you know, just like a big school like that, but I didn't know that they were in the Big Ten. And the reason I always wanted to play in the Big Ten is because all I knew was like Ohio State, like, oh, I'm from Cleveland, I like Ohio State, and they're in the Big Ten. So I was just like, you know what I mean? But I mean, that's kind of all that I knew until I like the ID camp and I started like learning more about them and stuff and talking with the coaches.
Yeah. See, I love that because I always get like dogged on because I knew so little going to the recruiting process. Like, I was like, I didn't know Michigan State was in the Big Ten, and it's not
Yeah.
that common, people.
No,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
no.
yeah. Yeah. I was the same way. And it's like, I mean, honestly, like I follow like college sports, but not like that closely. And I was also only like 15 at the time. So it's like you're so young. Like I don't know how you're expected to know all this stuff, but
Exactly. And it's interesting to hear how much the recruiting process has kind of changed because Sam, the
yeah.
co-host who's usually with me in her grandma years now, they were back and committing when they were like 12 years old.
Oh yeah.
And then I had the rule change kind of right in the middle of my process. So half my team committed prior to that June 15th date, and the other half, like me, were later, but you kind of started the process, then we were dead, and then you're back in it. So to see how it's all, shaped out and where it's at now has been really interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of like a learning curve because like just the coaches also like weren't completely familiar with it either, like my club. And so it was like my parents honestly helped me so much with it. Like my dad was more of like the focusing on the soccer aspect of it and the training to get noticed. And then my mom was following all these pages and learning all about it online from like parents who had just gone through it, which was honestly super helpful because like you learn how to write emails and talk with adults and like, you know, be more professional, not just like a 15-year-old. So
yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of the main way I went through the process was writing them emails, being like, come out to the showcases, come watch me play. What you see a lot of days now is like all over my Twitter and Instagram feed, I see kids using social media to get recruited. Was that ever something you did?
yeah, so I honestly don't really understand how people use like Instagram I haven't seen like much people have success with that, but I do think that Twitter is super good and I would totally recommend that for anybody going through the recruiting process because coaches can see it on their feed even if they don't follow you or whatever. And so like what I would do like with the Wisconsin coaches is like I would follow them and they can't talk to you, but you know if a coach follows you back, they know who you are and that they're interested. You know what I mean? So like they would follow me back and like other coaches from other schools would follow me back. And I was like, hey, they also emailed me because also at the time you don't know whether an email is, hey, we're trying to make like money and get you to come to our ID camp, or hey, we're interested in you and trying to get you to come to our ID camp. So that was actually super helpful. And then like I could post highlight reels and stuff, and I got like a good like just a couple hundred like coaches and like people following me. But you know, when people like and repost stuff, but I mean, though, I see some girls have like thousands of followers, but like when people like and repost stuff, then it like generates onto other people's feeds. So I would definitely recommend Twitter. I know there's like other like people will do your recruiting stuff for you, but I don't know how trustworthy any of that is. I can't speak on any of that, but
yeah, no, that is really interesting because that was always a big struggle with us was figuring out who was actually interested and who just wanted you to spend money in the ID
Right.
campaign. I see a lot of people go both ways where they're like, oh, this school like really, really wants me. And it's like the generic email we all have in our inbox. And, there's other people
Yes.
where like, I have no idea. And the school is trying to get their attention and it's hard to manage. So that's something really interesting I never thought of. Those follows and likes and shares is a good way to tell because they're not
Yeah.
going to do that for anybody.
No, right. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you're going through this process, you're still playing club, and it seems like your journey really started to take off once you're in high school. But at what point did you know that you were trying to pursue something past high school and that college was what you were interested in?
So, I mean, I kind of always just had that vision in my mind. It was never really like I didn't want to play, I would say, more than like I did want to, just because like growing up in club, like, and I think honestly, your older club team was a really big inspiration for that because like we had our big sis and little sis program, and it was like, oh, that's Jordyn. She's committed to Michigan State. Oh, that's Peyton. She's going to Memphis. That's Shelby. She's going to Xavier. You know what I mean? And so it was like all those girls are playing in college. Like that's going to be us soon. And then eventually, like that was. So it was kind of always just like in the back of my mind. My dad also played in college, so it was kind of always just like discussion in our family too.
Yeah, I forgot you were part of that team, the little sis team.
Yeah. I remember I was like, Shelby was my big sis, and it was like that first time in that like random hotel or something, and I don't even remember how old I was, but they had us do that like little scavenger hunt and stuff, and you guys gave us like these mini juggling balls. I still use mine to like train and stuff.
Oh my God, yeah. That's crazy. Like in my head, you guys never grew up. Like when I think back to that team, like you guys are still little kids. The fact that you're going to college now is absolutely insane.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Good times. John Felton, man, what a
Yeah.
guy.
Oh yeah.
Did you kind of have a timeline that you wanted to commit by, or was it just kind of going with the flow? Because for us, there was more wiggle room with it because the rules were changing and nobody really knew what was going on, and you're still figuring it out. Did you know you want to be committed kind of close to that June 15th date, or were you just waiting to see how things were? Did you have a timeline set?
Yeah, so like in my opinion, like I don't think you can go on visits until it's like August 1st or something like that. So committing like between June, like before then was kind of just like, I want to be able to see my college camp, like really see it and stuff and do a visit and whatever, like before just committing. So that those couple months were kind of just like whatever. And then but my goal was like to hopefully get committed before the end of that spring season, just because I knew that the bigger colleges, like the Power 5 or now Power 4 colleges, that's when they're committing their recruits. And I mean, as much as people want to say like, oh, they'll still pick up one or two girls their junior year. Yes, but the girl, like their priority players, like that's when they do their committing and their recruiting and stuff, as far as I've seen for most colleges at least. So I knew that like if I wanted to play it at the highest level, that would be the time that I should make a decision by. So
Yeah, absolutely. Going with that, the Power 5, now Power 4, and who knows what it will be by the time you actually play here.
Yeah.
You are going to end up playing in a much different scenario than you originally committed to. Do you have any kind of thoughts or opinions on that with the addition of schools, along with, which hopefully it doesn't affect you, but the unlimited transfer rule, which even if you're not transferring out, you can still bring additional players into your program or have other players maybe decide to leave or things of that nature with all those rule changes and situations? What are your thoughts on that going into this first college season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super exciting, the schools that are joining the Big Ten. I mean, obviously, like UCLA, USC, we go to California and play them this year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's a really cool experience that you never forget. I also think like it changes things so much. Like I think a lot of it has to do with like the money and stuff behind it, which is, is it better for the athletes? I don't know too much about like behind the scenes of that, but I think it's a cool opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about it. I wonder,
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, something, because I got 3 years of the normal normal Big Ten up until this point.
Yeah.
So it is something that's just super interesting to think about. I do think it makes our
Right.
conference, it kind of elevates that competition level for sure,
Yes.
with the addition of the schools. And who knows where this will go by the time you're graduating, but it'll be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think like the thing I mean with like the money and stuff behind it is I think that, we've cut now Power Fives down to Power Four. UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington are joining the Big Ten. And it's like these schools are getting so much money, so much, like, I don't want to say power, but power. And then what's going to happen to all of the mid-major schools? Nobody wants to play there anymore because literally like the bigger schools are completely taking over is kind of how I see it. And those schools are just not going to have as much money and stuff, which is just going to create an even bigger gap. But which will probably happen while I'm playing. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wrote a paper on this, like a whole essay in high school when they were first bringing up the thought of NIL. And I would love to find it now because it was basically predicting what would happen if they ever opened it up with the separation between the conferences. And then like my prediction essentially in my essay was that eventually you'd have complete separation from the power conferences from NCAA and they'd become their own entity, which would be really interesting how it plays out because it's all money. And a lot of it is tied to the NIL opening up, which has huge benefits for those top schools and programs. But like you said, those mid-majors and some of the, lower leagues who don't have the funding that our schools do, which luckily we're a part of that. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out for them and how they manage that with the funding. But going with that, like NIL can be great, can be bad, positives and negatives. Does Wisconsin do anything like team-wide deals or anything like that for NIL with you guys?
Not that I've been aware of yet. I haven't honestly not talked to my coach about any of that stuff, but I do see some of the Wisconsin girls doing deals with like restaurants in Madison or like certain drinks or, like programs that they become a part of for a certain cause or something. I'm not exactly sure how all of that works, honestly, yet, but because it's also new. But I think it's a really cool concept. I think it really is just such like a jump from the football players that are making millions of dollars, to like most players won't get anything from that. But I think it is a cool concept because you have these players that are bringing in, like the football players or whatever, they're bringing in millions of dollars from the school. And yes, their college is paid for, but is that enough to really justify how much work and how much stress and how, their school life and stuff is completely jeopardized by their sport? Can they get anything else out of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to see. And the reason I asked was because I wonder how it will change the recruiting process in the future if they'll start tying NIL deals, if they have team deals into their kind of scholarship bundle. They'll be like, we'll offer you 50% athletic scholarship, but we can give you maybe, 30, 40, 50% in terms of NIL deals. Because if we have team-wide deals or things like that in connections.
Right.
Which I think definitely a few schools have to be doing, even for women's soccer, which is definitely a lower level than the football players who I know are getting just ridiculous amounts of money. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and changes the recruiting process as well. It seems like you had your eyes set on Wisconsin pretty early, but what kind of drew you into them other than the competition level? Was there certain things and criteria you had in a school that they checked off?
Yeah, so I kind of had like my main criterias, and like honestly, this sounds like so stupid when I say this, but I'm not like, because it's going to be like, oh, she's just saying this because she committed there. But honestly, like there wasn't anything that they were missing. Like when I would look at other schools, like they were missing like the location. Like I don't really, like if I didn't play soccer there, I wouldn't really want to go to school there. Or, their program was like, okay. But, when I looked at Wisconsin, I looked at first like the coaches and the team. I mean, Paul is one of the best coaches in women's soccer, and their team has been consistently ranked a top 20, 25 team in the country, consistently do well in playoffs. So that was easily checked off. And then I looked at the location. I mean, Madison is one of the top college campuses and just surrounded by two lakes right in the capital city. It's beautiful there. Oh, academics, of course. And I mean, it's a high academic school, and their business school, which is what I'm going to be majoring in, is one of the best in the country. So, I mean, those are kind of like my main three things. And then also like distance, could my family see me play? And it is an 8-hour drive, which to most people, like when I say that, they're like, you're going to Wisconsin? Like, I don't know anybody going that far, but I'm like, I think when you play in a league like the ECNL and you're traveling every single weekend and you're traveling 5 times a year somewhere 8 hours away, you're flying to San Diego to play in the playoffs and Seattle to play in the playoffs, that it's like, what's another 8-hour drive a couple times a year? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how me and my family felt about it. And it's not like we have to fly. We could drive if we wanted to. I don't think I would have gone and played completely across the country. I kind of kept that in mind during my recruiting. I wasn't really emailing coaches too far west, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great list. The distance is definitely something, like you mentioned, when you travel all the time, 8 hours really isn't that far.
Yeah.
If you can drive it, if it's manageable to drive in a day, then that's practically next door.
Yeah. Right, exactly. That's how I felt about it too. Like, I think it does depend on how you grew up. I mean, if I grew up like, some leagues you stay in your state or just the surrounding states, then it would have been different. But I mean, we've been to Tennessee for soccer probably 15 times, and that's like a 9-hour drive. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I will say, I think Wisconsin's my favorite school that I've played at. Your guys' downtown area,
Oh, really?
the environment,
Yes.
I absolutely loved it. It was so nice.
Yeah, State Street is super cool. I mean, it's like right in the capital, and like you got all these shops and restaurants. And I know the sophomores are staying in an apartment this year that I think is like right on that street or right by it or something. So definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's another huge part that you look at is kind of the dorms, that living situation going into it. What is Wisconsin
Yeah.
with that?
So yeah, our freshman year we're in dorms, and it's with like one other girl, and we have our roommates and stuff figured out. And then after that, it's kind of just like apartments. I know at the sophomores, I think they're all in like 1 or 2 apartments this year. And what we're doing for the preseason, so like all of the incoming freshmen, we got our like this little house that we're all going to share. So that will be kind of fun. But
Yeah. So what's your dorms? Is it communal bathrooms? Is it suite bathrooms? Did you say that?
so it's like 2 dorms share 1 bathroom. So it's like 4 people share 1 bathroom, 2 people in each dorm. So, and then, our roommate is somebody else's soccer team. So, and then the other 2 people, I think like can be other athletes or other just regular students. I'm not completely sure, but
Yeah. Yeah, because that's always interesting, the difference in the universities. Because Michigan State, we also have suite style our freshman year, and then you room with another soccer, and then your suite mates are usually gymnastics or field hockey girls to give you a little bit of a break in there. And then you have to stay on campus for us for 2 years. So we have on-campus apartments if you get into them.
Yeah.
If not, you have to file an exemption or go back to dorms, but you have to be on campus for 2 years. So it's always interesting hearing the difference there.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you said you're in a house for preseason. When does that start for you guys? When's your return date for play?
Yeah, so our first day of captain's practices is July 8th. So I'm planning to head up there July 6th, July 7th. So, I mean, it's not like extremely early, but not like, I mean, a couple of my other friends are going up at the end of July, first week of August. So, it seems early, but like it's not. I mean, that's what you expect, like from bigger programs and what is necessary if you want to have a successful season, getting to know the team and getting comfortable with the level of play and stuff. So, I mean, I think it's completely reasonable.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty typical for at least the Big Ten for the people I've talked to. And honestly, I kind of forgot how long summer is because my brother's home for the summer now. And I'm like, oh, like, when are you going back? He's like, maybe like end of August. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Here for like 4 months? You're just home? That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think we kind of have an advantage at Wisconsin because we don't start school till super late. I'm not sure exactly when, but my mom just said after Labor Day. So like we have like most of our soccer, at least half our soccer season is out of the way by the time school starts. So we don't have such a, struggle balancing. I think that's the biggest thing is balancing school and soccer, but we don't have that for too long
Absolutely.
in season. So
Yeah, that's huge, especially freshman year, being able to go in, acclimate with the team, being able to
yeah,
figure out your role and everything before throwing academics on top of it.
right.
I think it makes a huge difference. So that'll be nice. What's kind of
Yeah.
the most exciting thing you're looking forward to going into the college world?
Honestly, just kind of like just a fresh start, like just with like this recovery and everything. It's just it gets repetitive, and it's not like I'm sad leaving. I'm obviously sad leaving high school soccer and club soccer behind, but it's not like I just ended my high school career and now I'm saying goodbye to all my club teammates. It's like I kind of have gotten over that. Like, it took me a couple of months, but I got over that a while ago. So it's like now I've just been waiting and waiting. So I'm just ready for like a new team to get back into that team aspect of things and to just start fresh with everything. So
Yeah, absolutely. Going into your injury a little bit, you tore your
yeah,
ACL in the very beginning of fall high school season. Do you know the date?
August 21st.
Okay. So you're looking at kind of the end of this recovery process for your ACL journey. How has that been? Like, when did you tear it? Like, how did you tear it? And then what was
Mm-hmm.
that process like of fixing it and figuring out what your next steps were?
Yeah. So it was just right in the start of the second half of the game. And I just went in for a tackle, and it was good because I knew right away, but also bad because I knew right away. Like I heard a couple pops and I felt my knee just go boom, boom, and gave out. And it was such a weird feeling. It was like suddenly you have like, you couldn't even stand up. And I just like completely fell over. And I just like, you always hear like growing up, I was terrified of tearing my ACL because it's become so common in women's sports. And it's about the worst injury you can have, especially for soccer, like such a cutting heavy sport. And so you always hear like that infamous, like, oh, if you hear a pop, like, and I was like, well, I heard 3 pops. So that's probably not a good thing. And that first night was probably the hardest night ever because I was just like, it just doesn't like feel real. I was like, I remember when I stood up and Kira, our trainer, finally got me to walk off the field. And I was like, this is literally the last time I will ever step foot on this field. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. And she was like, I mean, they can't really like diagnose you right then and there, but like she did the test and my ACL was not there. And then luckily I was able to get in and see my surgeon the next morning. I had like literally like the best care possible, I'd say, throughout my recovery. So I was super grateful for that. I saw my surgeon the next morning, and you have to wait to see the MRI, but he was like, I'm 99.9% sure you tore your ACL, possibly your meniscus. They can't tell until you get into surgery. And then I also sprained my MCL. So I was like, okay, great. So yeah, luckily, I mean, it was like, I got my surgery like 2.5 weeks after it happened. So that was good. I mean, I got it. I was able to get my legs straight, get the swelling out of the way, and get into surgery pretty quick, which was September 7th. But I mean, yeah, the first couple of weeks, it just didn't feel real because you can still walk and you feel fine. I wasn't in any pain, but then it was just like the reality of like, I'm still going to practice every day, but for what? You know what I mean? Like trying to cheer my team on was super hard, but I'd say the biggest thing, it was good. It was super busy time. Like a couple of days later, we had senior sunrise and, there were football games and stuff. So I was trying to keep myself busy. But I mean, yeah, it didn't feel real. And then after surgery, when I woke up from surgery, the biggest thing my surgeon said was, you did tear your meniscus and you'll be on crutches for 6 weeks, which was like 6 weeks of literal hell. I'm not a very coordinated, which sounds stupid, but I mean, I'm 6'1". I'm not, I'm not great with knowing where my feet are. And like, So being on crutches for 6 weeks and going to school and going to soccer practice every day and not being able to drive as a senior in high school and not being able to go to the football games was like the worst thing I've ever definitely had to go through. And then also me and my Wisconsin teammates did our unofficial visit while I was still on crutches. So which I had a fun weekend, but trying to get around the college campus on crutches about killed me. So yeah, the crutches were definitely the worst part. But after that, I mean, things with my recovery have gone so well. The hardest part was getting my knee straight, which I know a lot of people have struggles with because I also have a 10-degree hyperextension in my leg. So trying to get that back was difficult. But besides that, I've had a very pain-free recovery, which is pretty unheard of for like ACL tears. So, I mean, I'm very grateful for that. My quad, the day after surgery, I was able to activate my quad and start doing like lifting it in the air and doing exercises and stuff. So, and then, getting into the gym I was in a brace for a while. So it was just kind of like embarrassing. Like, oh, I have to go to the gym. Everybody from my school goes here. I can't even squat the bar. Like I can barely even walk right now. Like that was really hard. But I'd say the biggest like relief was once I started being able to do stuff with the ball again. And that was like around like 4 months. And since then, the process has been like 10 times easier because you just miss that so much and you don't even realize it. But it's like such a big part of your life. And yeah, I mean, my touch came back right away. And since then, it's just been, everything with soccer while trying to balance the strength and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you tear your meniscus, the crutches portion, that's non-weight bearing, isn't it?
Correct. So it was non-weight bearing for the first 2 weeks, I believe. And then the last 4 weeks, it was like 25% weight bearing, which is basically meaning like you want to get the walking motion back down. But like, I think it would have been easier to just do non-weight bearing because then it's like you have to walk so much slower because you're genuinely like trying to relearn how to walk. But I think if you're non-weight bearing for completely 6 weeks without even doing that, I think relearning to walk would be a lot harder. And it was hard to begin with. I mean, I have a video of myself trying to walk for the first time and it was like, oh my gosh, like I almost collapsed and I had to like use the crutches for another couple of days trying to relearn how to do it. And yeah, it was it was definitely hard. But yeah, that I'd say that was the biggest thing with the meniscus is people are like, oh, you tore your meniscus too. Well, that's gonna lengthen your recovery. And it doesn't. It just makes the beginning a heck of a lot harder. But once I was done with that 6 weeks, I was at the same rate as somebody with an ACL tear. It was just getting through that 6 weeks, which I mean does suck because when you just have surgery, you don't want to be told that right away. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want is any more bad news after waking up.
Yeah.
Someone cutting your leg open.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you tore your ACL and your meniscus in a high school soccer game.
Yes.
Do you have, a lot of parents, that's kind of their biggest fear, and that's kind of why they pull their kids from it, or kids choose not to play high school soccer. What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any regrets from playing high school?
Yeah, no regrets at all. I mean, I think you kind of would definitely agree with me on this. I think that Brunswick has such a special program and the best 3 years of playing soccer I could have asked for. I mean, I looked forward to it every fall. And I think when you have the platform that me and you do is like, we were the goal scorers of our team and stuff. It is so much fun. And if you make the best of it, it truly is. I mean, my junior year, I still think will like always be like the most fun, best year of my life. And, I think to people that say like, you can't, if you're going to play high school soccer, you're not going to play in college. It's going to make it hard to play in college. I don't believe in that at all because obviously you can still do plenty of recruiting during a long club season. I mean, it seriously is. High school is only a couple months. So, if you can't make the best of it with those other 9 months of the year, then that's on you. And also I think that college coaches, I know my coach agrees, like, yeah, I can score 6 or 7 goals against a high school team, and they'll be like, that's not preparing you for college. Any type of goal scoring is goal scoring, whether it's against a shitty team or a great team. I mean, you're still getting comfortable from shooting and from all different types of angles and like stuff like that. So I think that it prepares you no matter what. It prepares you to play under pressure. I mean, we would get tons of people at our games. And I mean, it prepares you to be a leader. Like us on our team, we were captains and stuff. Like that's preparing you to kind of take that step. So yeah, I mean, I have no regrets. I think it also gives you a ton of confidence. Club season was the first 2 years was like a struggle for me because I mean, I was getting recruited and stuff, but it was still like I wasn't a top player on my team. I wasn't always starting and stuff. So, then when I would go into high school season, I would get that confidence back. And it really did help my soccer career so much. And I give a ton of credit to that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. I think I'm the biggest advocate for high school soccer. I'm also very biased. Ward was my coach since I was like 2 years old, it feels like. I think he was like one of my first ever soccer coaches.
Yeah.
So being able to play for him and play for Brunswick, which honestly, I think everyone in our area in Brunswick played high school that went on to play at the next level. Maybe 1 or 2 kids didn't, but
yeah,
it was a great experience. And when you say like goal scorers, you're being modest. Like Brooke would have broke every single, I think, high school record there is to break in her senior season if she had the opportunity to. And yeah, there's no doubt about that. So I definitely think there's a lot to learn from high school. And like you said, same thing here. Like I was never the best kid on my club team. Like not even close. Getting the opportunity to become a leader and have a voice that I never would have had otherwise on club team, it forces you to grow up a lot. And I don't think there's any preparation like that for college when you have peers coming to your games. That's a whole different level of pressure than parents and then a coaching staff. They're adults. It's one thing to introduce yourself to strangers, but to your own peers and doing all that and being able to perform under that type of pressure. It's a whole different level. So I love that you said that. I love high school soccer, and I get those questions so often about like parents not wanting to do it. And I if you have a good enough team, I say go for it all the time. So I'm glad you don't regret it.
Yeah. Oh, I think me and you are kind of the best examples of that. You can do both. You can play high school soccer and you can go on to play at a high level college team. So
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, what are you doing with the other 9 months? You have so much time to figure it out and get recruited.
Yeah.
Colleges aren't even looking at you in the fall anyways, because they have their own season going on. They're busy.
Exactly. They're in their own season. They're busy. So they're not focused on that either. So
yeah. So what's your, just kind of wrapping it up here with that, what's your favorite soccer memory?
So I'd have to go with my junior year. We played North Ridgeville, and it was like our second game of the season. And I remember our first game of the season, it started off not good. Like I didn't have a great game. I scored a goal, but I wasn't feeling good. And I was like, oh gosh, it's going to be a long season if I keep playing like crap and whatever. And then the second game, I just went into it and I was like, okay, like I need to set the tone for the season. Like I need to straighten things out. And we were up, like, I think it was 3-1 at half. I had 2 goals. And then going into the second half early on, they tied it up. It was 3-3. And I will say there were like a bunch of people at this game. Like I think they had a student section. We had a big student section. So it was just super exciting. We were playing under the lights. It was 3-3. And then I scored. It was 4-3. And then they scored. It was 4-4. And then with like a couple minutes left, I scored a PK and we won the game like 5-4. And it was just like such an exciting thing. And I got pictures with my friends after the game. And like, I don't know, that was definitely like my favorite soccer memory ever, just because like the whole game was, sometimes you have games where like you have a really good goal, but then like the rest of the game's just like, eh. But that one was like, the whole thing was just super special. So
yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like it. Like when your friends come afterwards and you get to share that with them, because it's rare. Like, like you said, you're going to Tennessee so often. Nobody's doing that for your club games. So being able to share that moment, I think it's a huge part of college soccer, especially like Wisconsin and Michigan State. They have big sections where you come afterwards and you're like, you get to see everyone that's actually cheering you on at a different level. It's a whole different experience. And I'm really excited for you to be a part of it because, you know, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we got to share
Yeah.
the book.
I know. I know. Yep, I'm so excited.
Yeah. So one more question, a little bit serious now. I forgot to ask it earlier, but once you found out you were injured, how did you go about telling your coaching staff and what was their reaction, your Wisconsin coaching staff?
Those first couple days, I was just not in a good mental state. I could not think about anything without crying. My face was like just, oh, it was awful. And I knew that I could not get on the phone with my coaches, which to this day I feel bad about because I think I could have handled it better. But genuinely, I don't think I would have been able to get a word out. So I cut myself some credit there. I mean, I still choking up talking about it 9 months late, almost 9 months later. So, but the next morning I texted my coach and I was like, what did I say? I was like, obviously, like, I never wanted to have to send you this text, but last night I went down during my high school soccer game and my surgeon is 99.9% sure that I tore my ACL. You know, obviously this really sucks and I did not want to have to go through this right before coming up there, but you know, I'm going to work so hard to be able to come back and try and make an impact my freshman year. And obviously, like, I got a ton of people, like, when you tell people that, like, the first thing people would say is like, oh my gosh, your scholarship's going to get taken away, right? Or, oh my gosh, you're not going to be able to play in college anymore. And I'm like, that is so not true. And at least for my program and Paula and stuff, that was just completely untrue. I think she just, what she said was, we've got you. Don't worry about it. We know you're going to come back. And once she said that, like, I remember I was crying. I was like, it felt so nice to hear that because as much as I knew, like, she wasn't going to take my scholarship away or take my position away, it's still such a scary thing to go through. And once she just said, you know, we've got you, it kind of just relieved a ton of my nerves and stuff. And I was like, okay, now I've got to focus on doing my part to, you know, thank her for that. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that just reiterates the choices you make. And it's another thing to look at when you choose a program. You know, you want someone who's going to be there for you through the good times and the good times and the bad times. Just as much as you're going to work your butt off for them to be the best player you can be on the field, you need their support as well. And to have a relationship with your coaching staff where it's that two-way support system and to have that open communication, I think that's amazing. And I'm so happy to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, and don't get me wrong, like college soccer it's very cutthroat. You know, Michigan State, I think we're pretty open about it, has one of the biggest turnover rates and 10 or maybe NCAA. Like, some kids are cut out for it, some kids aren't. But you get a lot of like these outside views for it, and they're like, you know, you're just taking scholarships left and right, and you're doing this, and anytime any minor inconvenience happens, they're like, oh, you're done. You're like, that's not the reality at all. Like, it's as much as you put in as they give back to you, and it's a relationship both ways. So I'm so happy to hear you say that. And like, I know it's the hardest conversation in the world. And while my injury is, you know, grateful it's a fraction of the recovery time and as serious as yours was, you know, I tore my PCL and I still haven't been on the ball for it. It's been like too long, in my opinion, but 1 or 2 months, I think we're closing in on 2 months. But the hardest part was telling my coaching staff, having to go in there and be like, I'm so sorry, but I'm hurt. Like, I can't play for you. I can't do the thing I love, and I can't do the thing you hired me to be here for, you know, and in that moment, I think for me, it was like, it felt, and I overthink things a lot for sure, but it was like, did I just like end my career? Did I just end my career by doing this? Not because I won't be healthy good enough for the fall, but like, will they forgive me for being hurt, for getting hurt?
Right.
You know, and you have the conversation and it's like, you're totally fine. You know, like, it happens. It's a part of the game. It's a part of college. It's part of life. Like, you're going to get hurt at times and it'll all be okay in the end. So I'm glad.
And I will say, like, I'm sorry, to girls who are like going through recruiting and stuff, it's definitely something to ask your coaches before you commit, because it was a big thing in like my mind just I've had little injuries here and there, but nothing ever this major, obviously. But, it is something that you think about. And I've had friends who have torn their ACLs and stuff. And I would ask my coaches, like when I was talking to them, like, what would happen if, you have a long injury, like an ACL or something, and you can kind of tell right away, like, what their response is to that. Like, our coaches were like, on my visit, they were like, yeah, I mean, we take care of you. We don't take your scholarship away. And then other coaches will be like, well, it's definitely something that sucks. Like, it's a hard, long injury. And I was just like, okay, so what does that mean? You know what I mean? So it's definitely something. I mean, as much as I want to say every coach would react the same way as my coach did, I don't think that that's true. So it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And as hard as it is physically having to relearn all of that, walking and bending your knee and getting back on the ball and getting your touch,
Yeah.
like the hardest part is the mental aspect of it. Have you done anything, or what has kind of been your focus getting yourself mentally prepared to be back and to not just be back, but to just level up in terms of the college life?
Yeah. So I'd say like my biggest piece of advice would be you kind of have to let yourself feel it through and let yourself grieve, because being 8, 9 months out is a long time for somebody who's playing at a high level. And that's like, soccer is your entire life. And I think that a lot of girls will try and, right away just be like, okay, it happened. I need to get over this. But I think that, the first 4 or 5 months of my recovery were super mentally draining for me, and, super hard to get myself to go to the gym every day. I was, it was really hard. But I think that when you let yourself feel those things out and kind of go through that once you start playing again and stuff, it will almost completely go away. And at least that's what happened for me. So now I feel a lot more mentally stable, and, it feels like it used to, where I'm not afraid to do stuff anymore. But I do think it's super important to let yourself kind of have those, couple months, because you have the time to let yourself grieve and process kind of what happened. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially I'll take this opportunity with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, especially with injury when you're dealing with it. It is okay to fall apart at times. And if you ever need help or you ever need to do anything, you can always reach out, and there will be people to help you for that. 988 is the number to call if you ever need it. But I definitely agree. Like, you're gonna fall apart a little bit, and then you're gonna put yourself back together, and you're gonna be okay in the end. Like, it will come back. And I think that's the hardest part, is trusting that process, especially when you lose so much. You feel like you'll never be the same again. And you really just have to trust yourself and your ability to get back, and your doctors and their timeline and all that. And you'll be back. And I'm sure you're gonna kick some butt this fall. I'm so excited to see it. But if you had one piece of advice to leave a younger kid, trying to maybe go to Wisconsin, what piece of advice would you give them?
Join a club team where you're going to get seen, because at the end of the day, you can be as good as you want. If you're not playing in front of coaches and you're emailing them, at the end of the day, they have to see you play. And the only way to do that is to play. In my personal opinion, the ECNL is by far the best platform right now. I know GA has some top club teams too, but get on a club team where you can be seen by those types of coaches, because they don't just go to random showcases 30 minutes away from your house. And as many times as you email them, if you're playing in a league that they've never heard of, they're not going to keep watching your highlight videos. And you know what I mean? So I'd say that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good piece of advice. And it's something that's changed a lot since me and Sam have gone through it. I think definitely at this point, the ECNL is the kind of top league that I see a lot of the coaching staff at this level go to. Not that it's the only league out there, but it's definitely one that if you're looking to go to the Big Ten specifically, it's a league I would take a look at for sure. So,
and I know some like ECNL teams are hard to make, especially if, you've got a team of girls that have been playing together. Even their regional league, they still get colleges at their games. I know we have regional league girls that are committed to play D1. So does, Internationals, which is an ECNL team, nearby. So even the regional league is still, you're still going to get seen even if you're not on the first team. So
yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Brooke, for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. It has been so nice to catch up with you and get to talk to you again. I truly can't believe how much you've grown up since freshman year. And I can't believe it's been that long. Like, how much have you grown since freshman year? Because you definitely weren't 6'1"
Oh my gosh.
freshman.
I was 5'6", 5'7" my freshman year. And then I kept growing like 2 inches every year. And yeah, it's definitely unexpected. But yeah, I remember I was like, I thought that like maybe you were like the same height as me or something. Yeah.
So maybe you're like a little bit taller, but you definitely weren't.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's been crazy. And yeah, it's definitely unexpected and a challenge with soccer too, because it's not a like height. Like, I mean, you don't get a ton of advantages being super tall. It's hard to find your center of gravity sometimes, but it has its perks. So
definitely. It's been so amazing to watch your journey and to watch you grow up these past few years. I am your #1 fan, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on and, talking with me and coming on the Big Life podcast. So thank you so much.